busy news day. Some things going down around the country. The thing we're paying attention to is the show gets kicked off this afternoon as we've had some sort of crash landing of an F-35 near Miramar Marine Base, and I think Navy's out of there too, over in California. The plane looks like some of it's intact. You can recognize that it's an F-35. The pilot has been taken to a hospital. We don't know the full extent of those injuries at this hour, but another one of those F-35 mishaps. On paper, it's one of the fiercest and most capable planes ever put into or designed for warfare, but there have been a lot of incidents with this plane, and we don't know what really caused this one. But we'll keep an eye on that today. That won't be a dominant thing on the show. Before I get too far down the road, quick look at the weather. We do have rain coming in early in the morning. Could be 2 rounds of it. More severe round in the morning, I guess by the time we all wake up, depending on when you get up. Some of y'all just go to bed when I get up. So 5, 6 o'clock on Saturday morning should have some pretty heavy downfalls in the area. And then, of course, maybe another round setting up for later in the evening. But we'll see some sun tomorrow, which is a good thing. Tomorrow's not a complete washout. And the severe parameters on this system seem to be a whole lot less as well. So this doesn't seem to be a big weather threat, but there's enough of that out there that you need to kind of keep one eye on it this weekend as you plan around that morning activity. And then again, in the afternoon, last full weekend for a lot of kids to have summertime, so maybe they'll get some outdoor time on Saturday. Does look like a little bit cooler next week and a little bit drier. I noticed it would seem to be considerably drier this morning, but the humidity built back up again, and there's that. Let me start with this Spanish thing that was happening yesterday as we got on the air. There have been a lot of developments, and even though this is in Spain and it's something with Spain and Morocco, this story could not be there's no way to make this story more connected to us here in the United States, really the world, because this is yet another example of egregious politics and a combination of dangerous things that exist right here in our own country. And we've already seen it. We saw it during the Biden administration, but I would submit to you that it's even worse now. The threat against our country could be worse now because we're just months away from losing. And I talked about this all yesterday. When the Obama administration's out and the people that are enforcing that border are not allowed to do so again. And by the way, these lazy ass, worthless Republicans have not put into law many of the changes and enforcements Trump has made and been upheld in court over down on the border to keep us safe from being invaded by people from other countries, any countries. A lot of that's been upheld. Trump's done, they're building border wall. There's some sections where they're building double wall. But you let the Democrats get back in, or you let a weak Republican get in, and there's a whole bunch of them that really aren't committed to this issue. And we're back to being vulnerable to being bum rushed like they were in this little Spanish town, this little region of Spain right there near the Strait of Gibraltar. So let me just give you the latest on it that we know of. Now, a lot of this reporting is just all over the place, but Europe, this is causing a lot of tension in the European Union. This one incident has set off alarm bells and government actions in countries all over the EU. And so I'm going to try to explain that to you in a very direct, sort of simple way so that we can all wrap our heads around it. So we know what happened yesterday. The bum rush happened very coordinated. They were using trucks to barge across that border. Now, this little town, as many of you, we've all discovered all the geography by now to paint a radio map. We sort of did this yesterday. The tip of Spain comes down right to the Strait of Gibraltar. It's a very tight little gap that opens up the Mediterranean Sea really to the rest of the world. It's been used for centuries for nautical navigation. And it's an important choke point in the world. And I still suspect, and I started getting the heebie-jeebies on this yesterday during the show, that may be what's afoot here. It might not just be this mass migration, Islam trying to take over the continent, which they've done before. The first time Islam invaded Spain was in 1711, I think, and they came in and wound up wrecking the country and taking over for a few centuries. It took the Europeans 400 years to dislodge Islam from that part of the continent, and they still have vestiges of it there. And now it's trying to make a rebirth. So that's part of it. A little bit of it is refugee stuff because they're coming out of Morocco. But again, the profile yesterday was not refugees. These were fighting age males, violent people, by the way. They came in and commit instant violence as soon as they could get in. And the little town, Ceuta, as it has been pronounced, right there on the tip of Morocco, is actually part of Spain. And they've got a border. And the way the EU works, it's important to know all this, and many of you know this. Once you're in the certain nations in the EU, if you can set foot in there, you can go anywhere in the EU, basically without being checked. And I'll give you a personal example of that here in just a minute. So what they did was, instead of a few people a day eking in, which has been going on for a couple of decades there, this was a coordinated bum rush. Now, the numbers today it was somewhere around 50,000 people. And those numbers, of course, are all over the place. We heard estimates yesterday from 5,000 to 80,000, so we knew it was somewhere in between. And they're still coming in. And so Spain immediately, now understand the politics of Spain, they have elected a socialist prime minister who is an idiot. And they have moved quickly after his election. Pay attention to the parallels here. They bid on some of the free stuff ideas of socialism, it's a death trap for these people, but they did it. And one of the first things they did was start testing their immigration system. And their courts recently ruled, and I think they actually passed some legislation, that if anybody gets in the door of Spain, they can't be automatically deported. Now, what does that sound like? We're dealing with court cases in the United States right now. There's actually a ruling this week out of the Ninth Circuit, I think, that affected this issue of how long can they stay? Can you immediately deport? And the whole plan is to get people that are not indigenous to a country, any country, France, Spain, Italy, Norway, us, whatever, barge over the border and start trashing things in an effort to get that population established. And it does a number of things. It's economic damage, it's violence, it's disruption, it's the assaults, the rapes. It's literally one of the oldest immigration tactics in the history of mankind, and it's just breeding people out of their own existence. And we've seen the aftermath of that after decades of this in a much more slow fashion start to happen all over Europe. And I understand that Europe's at a boiling point over this issue, as we have been, because a lot of people around that continent have had enough. There have been some extremely violent incidents of murders and assaults right in the streets. Remember the guy that got his head cut off earlier in the summer? You've got uprisings going on in Germany and Ireland, some in France, the Netherlands. They've had enough of this mass impulse of people from the third world that bring nothing of value. This stuff that this is culturally enriching is one of the biggest lies in the history of humanity. It is not. It is in no way culturally enriching, because there's just too many people from a very different culture crashing at once. And the more they can do it with brute force, forget your laws, forget your stamps and your passports and your visas and your system of allowing people in. Brute force just overrules all that, especially when you've got a weak wanker running the show in Spain. People are calling for his head today all over Spain. He just got booed out of a village where he showed up at the scene of the crisis. At the last count, 38 people died yesterday in this bum rush. I think most of those were I'm not even going to call them immigrants, because they're not. This is a coordinated invasion. And I've never seen an invasion. We talked about them being unarmed. They were barefoot and shirtless because some of them had to swim. In order to get from the Morocco side around to the Spanish side where that border checkpoint is, you can literally go out into the ocean. It's similar to down around San Diego, between San Diego and Tijuana. And we've seen invaders try to do that down there too. So, but they overwhelmed the system, thousands at a time. Now, Spain has put out an edict that they've deported 38,000 of these. They've rounded them up and sent them out. There's not a single video to substantiate that. The people in the town in Ceuta and the town next door, and I forget the name of that one, are saying that they've had to hire armed security around the grocery stores because these folks started breaking out windows and looting the minute they got there. They didn't go and thank anybody for letting them in. They didn't go get in line somewhere for benefits. They just started breaking into houses and assaulting people and stealing stuff. And I think that was the plan. Now I'm going to talk about geopolitics in a minute because I do think this is part of this plan. This was planned, created, organized, and it's continuing. The headlines are just catching up to it. It's continuing. They're still coming across. Trump had something to say on it today, and we'll have that sound for you in a little bit too, but I've got some other thoughts to get out as we continue to watch the reaction. But this is the thing that was a surprising reaction, and it started with Italy yesterday. This was on our show, but I was still trying to make sense of that too because I didn't know what this Schengen agreement was. I'd never really studied it, but I did last night, and so now I'm a little better prepared to talk about it. So understand, I talked to you just now that the EU has a setup where it's really open borders. It's what they would love to do here in the Western Hemisphere. And so if you can get to the EU from Africa or Asia or anywhere in the world, once you're in, and you can move about through all the countries as if it's one place. And immediately these people, once they get set afoot in Ceuta or in that part of Spain, they're demanding asylum. By Spanish law, that they have to be granted hearings and the ability to stay, and so you'll never get them to leave. That's all they got to do is get a foot on the land, which is what that was about yesterday. They're going to clog up the system. Spain threw the doors open like the Biden administration. And so here they came immediately. And we saw images like this, similar to this on our own border just a few years ago. So this Schengen agreement involves, I think it's just 5 countries, and it's a specific agreement to allow cross-border from country to country without any real security checks, because the presumption is if the host country, the initial country's already vetted the person into the EU, then they've been cleared in. It's like getting past TSA in an airport, I guess. You can go from gate to gate after that. And so they've had this system for a long time, and it's one of their biggest downfalls. I remember when they first started talking about these concepts, I was horrified. I was like, how are they going to maintain any integrity of who's in their country and who's not? And so Italy moved yesterday and suggested they would do this, and today they formally did it. Remember, when we say today, this was hours ago. They're 8 hours behind us. And so Italy has revoked its part of that agreement. In other words, they've broken the Schengen agreement with the rest of Europe, saying they're going to throw up. They've closed their seaports and their air arrival, which would be their airports, to flights from Spain and boats from Spain and anybody coming in under that agreement. So they're going to close it. Probably there'll be some commerce, so they'll probably start checking the people that are coming across, and they're back to the old rules because they don't want to get bum rushed because Spain has kicked the door open. It's a huge threat to Italy, which has already been at the front door of this thing for years because of their proximity to North Africa. They've got an island similar to this place called Lampedusa, where people were doing the same thing. They would get on rickety boats, make it to that island, then Italy was stuck with them. The best Italy could do is let them move on north and get into the rest of Europe and ruin things north of them. But Italy got overwhelmed, and it's affected their politics. It's affecting people all over Europe. Europe hit the alarm bells yesterday, and then immediately some other countries came out and joined Italy in pulling from the agreement. So you've got, let me make sure I got the right countries. I believe it's Finland, I believe Norway and Italy, and I think 2 others this afternoon have already said, we're out too. We're not doing this. We're closing it down. We're closing down the border. We cannot continue to allow this. They know that the politics back home, all hell's going to break loose. I hope I'm not being too confusing. That's one of the bigger consequences this afternoon is I'm not predicting that it's the EU coming apart, but this is the first crack in EU unity that I've seen in a long time. Now, EU leftists, European Union leftists are freaking out over this. They're blaming Italy for being selfish, saying, hey, look, we help each other out. Everybody has the right to human dignity. And so you got wimps like France saying, oh, Italy, you got to do your parts. Just let's all take them in. Come on, Spain. And the rest of them are going, hell no, we've had enough. Churches are burning down. People are being raped. Murders are happening wantonly. Stabbing attacks are up. Terror attacks are up. This is what you get when you put the third world into your country. It's a suicide pact. It's a suicide pact for any civilized people to allow tens of thousands, and in our case, millions of people from uncivilized, undeveloped parts of the world to just barge in, unvetted. Vetted is fine. That doesn't mean no immigration. That means create your checkpoint. Check people's background and their history and their criminal record and their health condition and their ability to take care of themselves so they don't become a burden in your society. That's how we've always done it. That's how Europe used to do it. I've been through that process trying to visit there years ago before they opened it up. So it's a mess. We've got death. We've had fires last night. There were explosion confrontations in the streets, citizens hiding in their homes. This little town of 80,000 went from a population of 80,000 to like 130 or 40,000 overnight with just random dudes, fighting age dudes, wandering the streets, some of them with nothing but a swimsuit on, looking for something to eat and maybe something to screw or somebody to kill. It's a nightmare. It's something out of a Stephen King movie, except he's a left winger and he'd never write this kind of stuff. So it's foreboding for us because we are back in that condition at Eagle Pass and at the other checkpoints in our country because this tactic worked. There was nothing there to stop them, so they did it in mass style, which happened to us a couple of times under Biden. And of course, the Biden administration let it all in here. And so the battle continues worldwide over this. And I hope this is an alarm bell for Europe and here at home. In a minute, we'll have some sound from the president over this, saying the same things most of us were saying yesterday, that we're next. Y'all just, I don't even think we understand. Nothing Trump's done is permanent. If you're a left winger, that's good news for you. But nothing he's done will last past his last day in office if it's not upheld by the Congress and given some, if it's not codified in the law so that it can be sustained. The Democrats would have to vote it out to change it. Right now, all they got to do is elect one of their socialist representatives in their full-blown commie mode that they've gone into and throw the gates back open. And it's exactly what they would do. It's their agenda. It's the death of America. Both the communist and socialist here, good chunk of the Democrat Party, most of Islam, and worldwide globalists all have the same goal: death to America, death to the West. And they're doing it. And yesterday was an example of it. That's not alarm bells. Those are facts. We all saw it. I've got a lot to talk about tonight, and we'll take your phone calls on it too. Now, we've got plenty of other things to get into. I got a long list for today, and hopefully we can lighten up later and get in some fun stuff. But that's a serious story, and the more we learned about it today, the more serious it seemed. All right, quick break. Back in a minute. Lead on Live. Y'all stay tuned. All right, 227, Leland Live, talking NM5, Birmingham Broker. First up today, that is Craig and Keith and those guys downtown. Sometimes it's just time to trade. You need something new or you need to change how you roll. I know when you quit hauling kids, maybe you're tired of driving that big old mama bus around, or maybe it's the opposite. You suddenly got to drive a lot of kids around and you need more booty room. That has happened to my family both ways. Y'all, Birmingham Broker can help you when it's time to just sell that car. You may love that thing, but it's time for it to go. And Craig and Keith are pros at this. They're your people. They're going to handle the deal for you. And I love everything about their concept. You just turn the car over to them. They'll do what needs to be done. They can do some prep work. They don't do major body work, but they can get it all prepped up in case you need some cleanup and some little dings and stuff straightened out. And then they'll go market it and track down a buyer, do all the haggling, and life is good. It's Birmingham Broker. They'll get you a fatter check than you'll get on your own, and way better than trading it in. Trading it in is just not good. Excuse me, I had a frog in my throat, AJ. Birmingham Broker, downtown Birmingham, 4th Avenue South. Y'all go see them and let them get that ride sold. BHAMBroker.com. All right, I think we got time to get this in. Trump had a cabinet meeting today at Camp David. It's the first time that they've ever televised a meeting like this. First time, I think Eisenhower might have done it back in the 50s. Well, I'll tell you what, I hear the music playing. I don't want to have to cut Trump short, and I don't know the exact length of the soundbite. But we heard Trump talk about this issue in Spain with the kind of warning you would expect from Trump. You know, it further accentuates the Save America Act, the doubling down on the funding for not only the ICE deportations, but the border wall itself, and the other measures that we're trying to implement to keep this thing, to get things back under control. And then even if you do it, a lot of our side just screams about the deportation numbers. Even if you get a lot of that stuff done properly, it all comes right back very, very quickly if the security apparatus is not put into place, if you don't plug the hole. And we've got a lot of people in our country that think just like the leader of Spain. More on that in a minute, and we'll have Trump sound for you after the bottom of the hour. Stay tuned. All right, y'all, let's keep going. Alabama Bass John over there sent me the funniest picture today. I was just in the middle of nowhere, and I looked down and saw a text from John at Alabama Bass, and he was hanging out with our buddies at Rough Cut. It was cool. I love it when our sponsors get together. Daniel, I guess, was over there doing whatever he was doing, and they were getting together on a project. So I always loved that. We've got a lot of that where all our sponsors support each other too, especially when it comes to home services and things to improve your spot. And I'm telling you, this upgrade at Alabama Bath it's no exaggeration to say it's life-changing, especially if you've lost some mobility, and that can come a number of ways: illness, age. It just happens. And sometimes if you're going through something, or maybe somebody in your family is, and they need a little more help, or they feel a little bit unsteady, or the number of circumstances, just get rid of that step over and in tub, that thing you got to climb into and climb out of, and get you a easy to use, easy to enter stand-up system with Alabama Baths in your shower. They've got slip-proof surfaces, shelving and handles where they ought to be. This is just a lot safer to get yourself clean and refreshed. And they stand behind what they do. They do it very quickly. It's a 2-day project, and they're just going to beat their competitors. They've got some big, huge corporate competitors in this space. They've been around way longer, and they've got a better product, and they're more honest with you about their pricing, and there's no pressure. They just don't do the pressure tactic thing. This is not their style at Alabama Bath. So y'all reach out to them and see what you can do with John and the whole team, Jill and everybody, at alabamabass.com. If you want to go down to Pelham and take a look at one of the build outs, they're happy to show off, or they'll just come to you. It's alabamabass.com. All right, let's go back to the Spanish situation, and that leads to sort of the Iranian situation because of the Trump sound bites today. We've got a peculiar thing going on with our water systems around the country. I'm going to get into some of that here in just a minute. But first up, here's Trump from earlier today giving us a warning about where we are watching this Spanish invasion. Take a listen.
You know, I saw Spain yesterday, and I watched the catastrophe that took place. It looks like an invasion of a country by hundreds of thousands of people. And that same thing's going to happen to us if the Republicans don't get elected, except worse. Much bigger, much easier to get into, despite the fact that we have built thousands of miles of wall, which I said we were going to do. But we didn't have that, forget it. But we have the safest border in the world. If we're not in office, our country will be invaded at levels that made Spain look small time. And when I watched it, I said, boy, I'm going to say it because I knew you were going to be at Camp David. And I say, that's going to be a talking point for the midterms. Because when you look at what happened to Spain, they don't know what to do. And it's happening again today. They're coming in by the tens of thousands. They're just invading the country. And what that is weak law, bad management, but very liberal law. They passed a couple of laws, and people read. You know, people are smart. They read from other countries, and they swam that 3-mile swim, or however they got in, but nobody's seen anything like it. That will look good compared to what's going to happen to the United States. The biggest thing, the worst thing that Biden did is allowing 25 million people into our country, because many of those people are criminals. They're murderers. A lot of them, 11,888. A lot of them are gone now. We got them out. But they allowed people to come into this country that you can't allow to come into a country.
So there's ever been an issue that hits right down the lane for Trump, it's this. It's what he predicated his first term on. It's what he predicated his second term on, especially after the chaos in between those two terms. And what is happening right now still in real time in that area is as real as it gets. And it's hard to overstate the circumstances. Trump just talked about them not knowing what to do. The Spanish people are in this revolt against their leader, who hasn't been there very long. Sanchez, by the way, they're calling him Dirty Sanchez. Y'all can make of that what you will. Then you've got the rest of the EU turning on Spain and walling themselves off. The softer EU nations fighting with each other over whether to stick together and continue to allow this or to start to wall off their own countries. And if they do that, some are predicting it's a breakup to the EU. I think their economic treaties together and some of the defense situation they find themselves in of late could still hold the whole thing together. But this is, if there's ever an issue that could be the catalyst to that break apart, which would be good for some of those EU nations and not good for others, it could be this. So we'll keep watching it and talking about it. Now, onto the water systems, and this is crazy, but I'll see if I can describe it. The first report we got was out of Minnesota, and it's Minnesota, so you can't believe anything out of Minnesota. But Minnesota was claiming that some third party of some sort had managed to hack their water systems software. And I believe it was enough so that it shut down a few of their water systems. I believe they were able to get some of that worked out, but they reported it as they believe because of the signature and the way the hacker got into their systems is that it was probably a country. And then the presumption was from there that it was the Iranians. The Iranians are still trying to pretend to be in the fight. Every now and then they'll lob a missile or they'll do something like this just to maintain disruption during all this back and forth with negotiations. And so Trump today, immediately when he was at Camp David, was asked about it. I don't have that soundbite pulled right up, but he completely poo-pooed the notion. He said, no, that's probably just incompetence in Minnesota. It's Minnesota. I mean, he basically, I'm paraphrasing, but he basically said, Minnesota doesn't know how to manage anything. It's those idiots there. We don't believe it's a foreign attacker. Who knows? And he kind of blew it off. I'm not sure if he was briefed when he said that, but that was his gut on it. And he could still be right. But then later today, the FBI put a statement out about it. Not necessarily contradicting Trump, but yeah, contradicting in some ways, saying that there have been some other water utilities around the country. I believe I read as of about 30 minutes ago, it was about 5 states that are also reporting intrusions into their software systems. Now, one would conclude if they're all water utilities, there'd be one reason for that. That's a infrastructure item. Trump has been threatening to bomb Iran's desalination plants. They can't really produce water. They had a water crisis before all this started, so it could be hitting our infrastructure because we hit their infrastructure, and they can't do it kinetically, so they're trying to do it through this hacking system. Potentially, I think that's plausible. Whether it is or not, we don't know. But it could also be that all these systems have similar software. And if there's a vulnerability in any of the software that they're using to run these various utilities, it would stand to reason that if a hacker found its way in, they're going to replicate that attack everywhere they can that is using the software. So I'm sure some of these software geeks are behind the scenes working this out, trying to create a patch or a way to fight off the intrusion. So far, no real damage has been reported. But there's this dispute as to whether or not was this a foreign country, was this the Iranians, or what? So the FBI just basically acknowledged there have been some reports in that systems are coming under fire. That also gets the word out to other water systems to be on guard and lets the public know about it. But they have not attributed it to a source yet. Trump has poo-pooed that it's Iran. Does that make any sense? So that's where we are in that full circle. So as soon as I saw it, I got to thinking, well, we didn't really have to worry about it here in Alabama. We can do our own water systems through sheer incompetence. You don't even need the Iranians. So there's that, and then these other things that are floating around out there today that are all loosely connected to the Iran situation. And back to the Iran situation for a minute. I'm going to get all the heavy stuff out of the way, and then we'll try to ease up a little later in the show. I'll say that, and then sure enough, all hell will break loose, and we'll have some breaking news. But the other thing that's being widely speculated upon is what's the next big round of bombing or the next move with Iran. Trump doesn't really ever go to Camp David. He's not a big Camp David guy, and he never brings the cameras along. And some folks just trying to read the tea leaves around the administration believe that the last time he did something like this, he had a big hunker down meeting. I believe that's when we hit Fordham and surprised some people. But I thought Trump was at a dinner in Florida during that event. But something big happened when he had gone over to Camp David. So some people just reading, well, that's his prepositioning at Camp David before another strike. He's been advised, we're understanding, by a group of generals and military experts that they've got a plan to do a massive 14-day sustained campaign that would just break apart all of these residual targets in Iran that are more infrastructure oriented, but still military targets. That being the IRGC headquarters, some of their command centers, uh, some of the supply chain stuff where China and Russia are probably smuggling in resupply weapons to them, which is where some of these random missiles are coming from. We already hit a railroad line that brought stuff in. So it's all those kind of things back and forth over what's going to happen this weekend. But the buzz all around the Pentagon is something big's about to go down, and it could be more sustained, sort of last big punch to either decapitate the regime or to just change the strategy and make it more intense in the beginning. We'll just see how it plays out, but that's the scuttlebutt today. Stock markets at last check, let me double check, taking it all in stride today. Dow's up 413. It's kind of gained back what it lost on that big drop day. So the markets aren't as freaked out. Oil's not having a spike. It has trended up. We're still paying a lot at the pump, but the Iranians are not having success at creating new chaos. Their ability to apply the economics of oil to the United States is not playing out like they want to. But then again, how long in a midterm election year can soft Americans who really don't know a lot about civics and international affairs, how long are they willing to put up with the gas prices? It's a real thing, and it probably will affect the midterms in some way. So there's all that. Most of that's not changed from the last week or so. It's just there's a lot of anticipation that something else is there's going to be a redirect or a change moving forward starting this weekend. We'll keep watching that too. All right. Boy, that was a mouthful. That was a lot of foreign policy in a 45-minute segment. Let me go ahead and get everything else up in front of you, and then we'll take another break and see what else we can come up with at the top of the hour. All American Metals is next up here on the show. Man, I do so much appreciate John and the whole group over there for being such pros. I've gotten older in my own personal dealings. The older I get in life and the way things change around me a lot, I just respect competence. I'm telling you, it's getting rarer. Nowadays it's easy. Let me just go off on a tangent for a minute, and then I'll go back to All American. It's easy for people to create an image of quality. It's easy to have AI knock you out a beautiful, professional-looking website and fake your headshot and present yourself as a really solid company out into the world. And whether you're competent and actually know what you're doing, completely different deal. Completely different deal. You can even rig some of these online star systems to look like everybody loves you. This is a great company. It's all kind of kabuki theater sometimes with marketing. But you take a company that's been around since the 1960s. These guys are real steel people that work with their hands and their machines and their factories and have a tremendous track record that didn't just pop up on social media, that's been there for decades. Now you got competence. You got 2 generations in a very valuable industry. Everything related to steel is. But man, these guys, when you want a building built right and built at a better price with customization, because you're dealing directly with live human beings on the phone that can get your project all planned out and sketched out for you, and everything. It's a seamless operation from the design work all the way through the delivery of the building. They control everything in that process. The metal construction, the loading it on the trucks, every component in the building that's part of the design you agreed to. Man, that is the way to get something done, get it done right, and get it done in a hurry. Time's money. If you're in business and you want to grow, if you're starting a business or it's a residential use and you just want to build a structure on your property, this is your company. They're based out of, I call it Bessemer Hueytown because they're kind of right in that whole area. They got factories all over. But trust All American to get this project done for you. It's All American Metals. You can get them if you're looking into any of this stuff at aa-metal.com, aa-metal.com. Back here in just a minute. All right, y'all. Leland Live, Talk Internet 5. Let's keep on going here on this Friday. I want to talk about the Seattle situation for a minute, something that I haven't been paying a whole lot of attention to, but there was a live news conference today and I had to stop and watch it for a little bit. Seattle, again, like we forget about them because we're watching the incompetence down in LA, and New York City just self-destruct and commit suicide. And Seattle's has been a mess for a long time. I'll never forget this documentary I watched from a news anchor that used to be a big part of the Seattle news scene for years. I'm sure he was out of the business by the time he did this. I don't know exactly, but he did a interesting piece called "Seattle is Dying," and he was going through all the bad things that have been happening. And like a lot of the other blue cities in this country, they will double down on stupid. They'll not course correct, which is why people are finally fleeing these cities. Chicago just did it. They had an idiot for a mayor, found a bigger idiot to be the mayor. New York City had a sequence of idiots, and then they elect an Islamo-commie. What? With no experience. And so we're watching this happen all over the country. So today it was Seattle's turn. Let me explain the dynamic. Last weekend, they had a mass shooting at a big festival that's a big deal in Seattle near the Space Needle. It was some kind of food event. It was like, instead of Taste of Seattle, they called it something like Bite Seattle or something weird. And so apparently the weather was good. Everybody was having a good time. And then these thugs decided to shoot at each other. Well, they arrested a 15-year-old. They're not going to name him because he's 15, and we haven't seen anything but him being escorted. I think his name's out there floating around. Now there's confusion over whether the gun he was firing, because he was firing the gun, actually hit some of the people that were killed. I think it was 4 people that wound up getting killed in the crossfire from some random thug beef in the middle of a nice family food festival in Seattle. So it's embarrassing for the city, but that was only the beginning of it. So all hell breaks loose. People have to run for their lives. Some of y'all saw this on the news. And so the media, being the media, do what they got to do. They cover the chaos, went down there live. It was breaking news around the country. And then they were waiting on the cops to tell them what happened. They had snagged this little 15-year-old, unsupervised street urchin, and snagged him and put him up and got his weapon away from him. But there were some other people on the loose, clearly a danger in the city. And then came the incompetence of the officials themselves. This is similar, not the exact same circumstances, but it's similar to Spain. Let me tell you what the common tissue is. They got a socialist mayor now in Seattle. They elected this total idiot who is completely incompetent and really starting to piss people off very early in her administration, similar to Mamdani. She's alienating a lot of groups. So today, let me give you some more information, and just to tee this up, so why today was so weird. So there was this huge gap in information for the public from the police department right after the incident happened. So here's a major incident, and they can't find the mayor, and the police chief's out of town. He was at some black chief something. They're all going on junkets all the time. He was already under fire for missing work a lot. He's traveled 47 days or something so far this year. And for a police chief with a city that's got so many problems, you kind of need to be there to run your department. So this guy was already not popular with some people in Seattle. But then here's this goofy mayor who, again, absolutely inexperienced. I guess everybody runs on vibes and emotion nowadays. They put her in charge, and she didn't communicate well with the chief. The chief wasn't talking to her. They have a city system in Seattle called Seattle Aware, or some catchy little thing like that. It's like an Amber Alert that we would have here when something goes down, so the public can help. They can know what the information is, or know whether to go shelter in place because there's just been a mass shooting. Remember, innocent people got shot just attending a food festival in a big blue city. So chaos and the fallout continues. So today, the mayor fired the police chief, blaming the police chief for a lot of the miscommunication, the huge delays, the lack of public reaction, the poor performance of the police department in trying to solve the case, apprehend more suspects, give the public the truth. There's still, days later, we're almost a week out from the incident, and there's mass confusion as to what happened or who's going to be held accountable. So the mayor cans the police chief And immediately at the news conference, she starts getting peppered with questions about making the chief a scapegoat. So I don't know if the city's going to see it that way. You've got two people that are both, it's like, to be honest with you, it's all leftists out there. So if there's going to be a food fight, no pun intended, it's going to be left on left out there. But that's what you've got right now. You've got a black police chief who's under fire for not doing his job well, and a brand new mayor who's a straight socialist that couldn't run. Socialists can't organize a 2-car funeral. They're just not good at running things. And because they have dreams and hopes and lies, and they spit all that out there. And then when it comes time to do it, they can't do it. It doesn't work. So I'm watching, get the popcorn and watch Seattle have a meltdown. So there now calls for the mayor to resign too over the shooting incident. And all along there's a set of parents nobody's heard from either. Where the hell are this kid's parents? Why is he running around with a gun at 15 shooting up people at a food festival? I know we can't talk about that though, can we? Back in a minute.